A brand new book is exposing the left-leaning, trying to be moderate California Governor Gavin Newsom and his ties to the Chinese Communist Party, claiming Newsom's history with a nonprofit organization served as a gateway for corrupt CCP-aligned corporations to flood the state. Authors of that book, Fool's Gold, the radical con artists and traitors who killed the California dream and now threaten us all. Susan Crabtree and Jedd McFatter. All right, so look, I caught some pieces of this. This is great. And nothing proves it better, Susan, when Xi Jinping decides to come to San Francisco, and that's the first time the streets have been clean in like 20 years.
Absolutely right. Gavin Newsom, we did this big deep dive. Not only was he in China he cleaned up the streets of San Francisco for President Xi. When he went to China, he did these big glamour shots on the Great Wall of China with his sunglasses and his shirt open. And he had a handshake with President Xi and was running around in EV cars made by China instead of the ones made by American companies and companies based in California. And what we found in this deep dive is that he created this group called ChinaSF to recruit Chinese businesses and investment to the Bay Area. That was back when he was mayor of San Francisco. But in effect, it created a streamlined path for Chinese criminals and CCP officials to infiltrate California and buy up real estate and bribe government officials while pilfering intellectual property from American citizens. I think Jedd is the one who did the deep dive on all of this, so I would defer to him for some of the
other thing too is like, what did he get out of all this? And that's the question. But also, your book, Jedd, it talks about how he made a monument for himself inside of the San Francisco City Hall, $97,000 for a gold head of himself.
Right. Well, yeah, thanks for having us here. What we know is that when Gavin Newsom was lieutenant governor, he solicited 2 behested payments from his own companies to be donated to a charity to help fund the bronze bust. What we don't know is did his companies get a tax exemption for that?
Oh, I mean, that's the crazy thing. All right, so the other thing is, and Jedd, I'll ask you about this again. Remember when he fell playing basketball with a China, playing basketball with a kid in China? He absolutely stomped this kid, knocks him over. Now look, if I did that in China, they'd probably still have me in jail.
Right, maybe. I'm not sure.
No, but is this part of a deeper tie with him? Because that's not a great look.
Well, you mentioned one thing, like how does he benefit in some ways, and what I'll say is like that nonprofit that he created, ChinaSF. Mm-hmm. One of the companies that he recruited in was a company called ZNL Properties. They were a subsidiary of a large Chinese real estate company. He recruited them in. They bought a bunch of different, immediately got a dozen real estate projects or so that they ended up stalling out, lawsuits stacked up against them. The owner of the company, of ZNL Properties, was later criminally sentenced for bribing a close associate, actually, and a former appointee of Gavin Newsom. Yeah. And that same company, ZNL, they gave a kind of anonymous donation in 2017 to Gavin Newsom's campaign. That's just one example, but the book provides 7 or 8 examples just like this.
Well, yeah, but also, Susan, the other thing, too, is we saw, Tim Walz. The guy ran for vice president, and, nobody bothered to do a deep dive. Maybe you guys can do him next. But this guy went to China 30-something times. I mean, who goes to China 30 times?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting that he got these 100 companies, Chinese companies, to come to California, but the reverse wasn't true. The California companies weren't entering China, but at the same time, he had 2 of his best wines trademarked for China, and Jedd found that there was a wine tasting that he had at this big business tycoon with ties to the CCP's Shishi restaurant, and he was there pouring the wine, his own wine. So he's getting a lot out of this. In fact, we found at his vineyard, there's a shipping container that serves as an office that is actually has Chinese language all over it, writing all over it. It's a Chinese shipping container. What's all that about?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many questions that, it would take us years to get to them. Susan, Jedd, I appreciate you writing this book, and I hope you can dig into Tim Walz next, because he might run for president in 2028, too. Appreciate it.